This is my week 2 entry on the Mediterranean diet, the DASH diet, and the Omni diet. So what is the Mediterranean diet? The Mediterranean diet is a diet that emphasizes fruits, vegetables, nuts, whole grains, and the primary source of fat is from olive oil. There is little meat and little full-fat dairy, and there's a higher monounsaturated fat to saturated fat ratio. My favorite part, though, is the glass of red wine that usually accompanies dinner and sometimes lunch even. Do we know for sure that the Mediterranean diet produced longevity? And do we know what we generally call the Mediterranean diet decreases CVD risk or other risk? And I'm going to combine these two and answer them together because they do kind of go hand in hand. We do have a lot of research data that shows that the Mediterranean diet does in fact decrease CVD risk and risk to other diseases like Alzheimer's, and I will cover that later. But that can't be said as an overall standing as to whether or not it produces longevity, because there's more to the Creation lifestyle than just what they eat. They have a very different lifestyle than that of us here in the United States. They have a lot more physical activity. They tend to walk a lot more. We like to drive places. They spend a lot of time outdoors, whereas we're sitting usually behind a computer. They also socialize a lot more with each other, in person in particular, over meals or just family gatherings. And we don't tend to do that nearly as much, maybe with our immediate family, but we're a very get up and go society. So it's point A to point B with not much in between. Probably one of the biggest things that they do is they do a lot of resting. There's a lot of time for naps in the afternoon, lots of time for sleep, just a lot of downtime in between work. And we don't see that much downtime. Average person here gets maybe 4 to 6 hours, of sleep, which is definitely not healthy at all. And so, of course, all of this plays a very important role in how long someone will live, not just whether or not you can decrease the CVD risk or risks in other areas. It's a bigger picture. So we can't say for sure whether or not the Mediterranean diet does in fact produce longevity. So if you were to follow the Mediterranean diet, what would you expect your day to look like? Well, breakfast would be something, maybe a piece of toast or a pita bread with some olive oil, definitely not butter, like we like to do here in the United States. You might include a half a cup or so of non-fat yogurt and some fruit, some dates maybe, or a half a slice of apple or pear, and a handful of nuts, almonds, walnuts, something like that. Lunch would be some bean salad, or maybe a small chicken salad, some cheese if you didn't include a protein before, some fruit. Dinner could be maybe some fish or chicken with some brown rice and a nice salad to go with it. And if you're looking for a snack, then maybe some carrot sticks or celery sticks dipped in hummus. That would be a nice round Mediterranean diet day. What is the difference between the Mediterranean diet and the DASH diet? Well, besides the fact that the DASH diet does include more fruits and vegetables, the biggest difference is that the Mediterranean diet has a lot more fat in it. That fat being from the olive oil, that's their primary fat source. The DASH diet is very much low in fat overall. What is the difference between the DASH diet and the Omni diet? Well, the DASH diet is very rich in carbohydrates, where the Omni diet would take about 10% of those carbohydrates and trade it out for more protein, though more fish and chicken versus red meats. And definitely, or you could change it out for monounsaturated fats. So you're going to see a lot less fruits and fruit juices, and definitely a lot less grain in the Omni diet. So my something new is an article I found on PubMed, Physical Activity, Mediterranean Diet, and Biomarkers Assessed Risk of Alzheimer's, a multimodality brain imaging study. It was published in the Advanced Journal of Molecular Imaging in October of 2014. So there's a lot of growing evidence out there to suggest that there is an association between good diet and exercise habits and a reduced risk of Alzheimer's, much like there is an association between the Mediterranean diet and high activity, physical activity, and the reduced risk of CVDs. And this is one of the first studies done to show a combination of diet, in this case the Mediterranean diet, and physical activities, and its effects on in vivo biomarkers, specifically looking at the amyloid beta plaque loads. And we know that that's one of those things that is looked at in terms of clinical assessment of Alzheimer's. So they identified 45 subjects from a study that was already going on, similar to this one. And from those 45, they were able to obtain consent. The subjects were between the ages of 25 and 54. 71% were women. 15 of them were on medication for high blood pressure and antidepressants, and those that were on medication for antidepressants were asked to cleanse themselves for 2 weeks prior to the brain imaging, at least portion of it. They were non-diabetic, non-smokers, and not obese. The physical activities were determined by the Minnesota Leisure Time Activity Survey that participants filled out, and the survey asked questions regarding things like, did they walk for pleasure, or did they take the stairs when an elevator or an escalator was available? Did they participate in any conditioning activities? Did they go to the gym regularly, or were they members of sports teams? And also, did they do other high-impact activities like shoveling your driveway or mowing their lawns? And all of that was taken into account to determine their leisure time activity level. The dietary information was obtained from the 153 item version of the Harvard Willits questionnaire, and information from that was broken down into caloric intake to determine serving sizes of all that they were eating. That was broken down into 7 categories, either considered to be beneficial and adhering to the Mediterranean diet, or non-beneficial and not adhering to the Mediterranean diet. And from all of that, participants were given a score of 1 for anytime they adhered to the Mediterranean diet, when their monounsaturated fat to saturated fat levels were above the median. Also, if they had a mild to moderate alcohol consumption level. And that would give you your Mediterranean diet score. And the brain imaging was done, they did an MRI scan, a Pittsburgh compound B scan, and the FDG PET scan. Statistical analysis used were the GLM and the chi-squared tests, and any p-value that was less than or equal to 0.05 was considered statistically significant. From all of this, the 45 participants were broken down into 4 categories: high Mediterranean diet adherence and high physical activity was category 1. Category 2 was high Mediterranean diet adherence and low physical activity. Category 3 was low Mediterranean diet adherence and high physical activity. And category 4 was low Mediterranean diet adherence and low physical activity. And from all of their analysis, they were able to show statistically significant information regarding this, that high Mediterranean diet activity or adherence and high physical activity produce a lower amylase beta load. And then those who had low Mediterranean diet adherence and low physical activity had a much higher amylase beta load. And those in the other 2 categories then fell in the middle, statistically even with each other, but definitely different from the other 2. The biggest limitation was the sample size. There were only 45 participants, and that's a very low sample size. And the journal article does recognize that and suggests that another study be done on a much larger participation level. Also, I noticed that there was 71% women, and I'm not sure how much that would throw off the information or the evidence regarding men. They're just, it being such a small study or such a small participation, count definitely lends to the idea that they weren't able to cross things off like race and socioeconomic things that may also play a part in Alzheimer's disease. So that's something new that I bring to the table.